Good early morning. All right, we had a nice Monday. Let's talk about what happened. Um, we closed up. So Coin closed up at 7.04% up at 225.86, and we closed up at 5.86. So typically when there's a big surge like that, we lag behind slightly, right? Because we still have weeklies, and they're not completely capped, but we ran pretty close pretty quick. But overall, very positive. So we didn't have any trades to account for, but let me show you how it looks on our synthetic. I've also got some technical analysis that I'm going to do for you guys that impacts both CONY and MSTY. So let's go to the 260 position here, and let's take a look at this. So this tells us that we're up pretty well, right? So no new trades. So these are all in place, 17,990. But we went from a position, and I'll show you on a different tab here, of basically, right? Whoops, I changed it on all of the other places, but I didn't change it here. All right, so we'll make that green. I'll do that another time. I don't want to waste your time. So we were up pretty good, right? We're still 13% underneath the 260, but plenty time. So let me show you what that, remember I write numbers that say for a $10 gain in coin, it takes away 29 million of our liability, right? So we've been doing good on our synthetic, but we're in a situation where we're under. So let's go over here to our holdings, go kind of out of order here. And I want it, normally I show it to you like this. I come out and say, these are the things that we hold, all of our cash positions, right? And then you can tell you want a bigger number up here and a smaller number down here. I always show the calls first and then the puts. So think of puts as a liability. We need to be to 260 before that goes to zero, right, at expiration time. So that's why we're 80 in the hole, but by moving up, we reduced that, and we reduced this. So I wanted to show it in a graph going forward. So instead of telling you we went from 85 to 59, you can now visibly see it. So remember, in order to generate income to pay you guys out, there are two forms of generating income, and both are sort of bullish bets, although the weekly calls can generate income when you're flat to slightly down. Okay, the synthetics only really make you money when you're moving up, right? So we went from a liability of 85 million to only a liability of 59, right? So when you subtract these two numbers, well, normally every time you look at it, the old number is gone. So I thought maybe I would just make this like 3 days in a row and then reset it. Okay, so now let me go back in the order. So again, no new trades today. Shares stayed the same. And our cash didn't really move. Well, it did move 5,000, and I take it back that there were no changes. There were 75,000 shares added. But ironically, they didn't do anything with the money, that 5 million, right? So they weren't deployed in any positions. And on our weekly, since we moved up a lot, those gained in value here, which is a negative, right? When we sell the call, as long as we end up below the strike price, we get it all, but the actual book value is still moving up, so we don't want to surpass that, right? We don't want to go past that price. So let's go take a look at those. But overall, it was a very positive day because our NAV went up, right? We went to 225 we went 2404 from 2271. I remember I bought some at 2291 on that Friday. Um, so nice movement, fairly flat on implied volatility. But let's take a look at these. So we've got 10,000 contracts and 7,000. So at least they're split on two strikes, although they're very close. So by going up, right, substantially, we're now in the range, if we keep going, to not being able to collect that money. But we would make it up in the other side. We would make it up in the synthetics, right? So I always like to give you the perfect scenario. The perfect scenario is we go right up to 232.50, get very close to it on Friday. Remember, these are always just 1 week out. Now we have 4 trading days, right? These 300 at 255, more than likely we won't go there. So speaking of all that, what I did is I watched Gareth Soloway a lot, and he has morning and late things. He's just a brilliant technician, right? Nobody can really predict exactly where a price is going, but they can give you what the chart is telling them is most likely, of probabilities. So I watch him all the time, daily, on Bitcoin and gold, and he doesn't do it on, I haven't seen a coin lately or a MicroStrategy, or I'd show you those as well. But remember, both of these, they're not exclusively related to Bitcoin, but I would say there's a 70 to 80% correlation of the direction of Bitcoin you have in these stocks. They both have earnings coming up, right? So 5.2 is the earnings for Coinbase, which we're talking about coin. So let me just review what he's been saying all along here, right? So fairly positive. So here's Bitcoin on its big rise earlier this year, went up and set a new high in the 74-ish range. And then we have a trend line, right? So when you have a trend line here, you come down and you test it, right? So 3 tests had been made on the trend line, and then on the 4th time, we fell, right? So we broke a positive trend line, which would have said the probability of going up is greater than going down. But this trend line here, which maps to an old high over here, is support. So twice during the days, we've gone down to support only to rally back up. So right now, support at that time was 60, right? One of these days actually went down and touched 59.9 something, right? So we want to stay, and this rises slightly as we move toward May, right? When we finish out days here. So at the end of this day, this was done in the morning on Monday, so we were up just a hair higher here, right? So this is our resistance. So the closer, right now resistance around 68, it moves up over the next week or so to 70. So technically, as long as we stay here, you know, the odds favor if we rally up to say 68.5, 68.8, depending on the slope of the line, we probably will get kicked back. And some people draw a midpoint line right here. So the point is, until we hit high volume, or we break down from here or break up from here, and oftentimes when you break up from here, you come back to test sort of the scene of the crime, right? You broke out, you retest, you keep going, okay? And the same thing can happen here. You can have a false breakdown. You can come down, break down low, below, go up and close, or the next day you come back in the trading zone. But there's probabilities of the pattern. So while I hope we go on straight to new highs, what do I think is going to happen? High probability says we're going to get up here closer to the resistance line, and then we're going to pull back. But let's hope we don't have to go down and retest support, right? Let's hope we do it. But in this kind of environment, we'll do very well in our weeklies. And since it's a climbing higher highs and higher lows, we'll do okay in the synthetics, right? But I know what we all want, but it could be 4 to 6 weeks, who knows, before we rally up and break the new highs. Nobody really knows the answer to that. All right, so I just wanted to give you some of the things that I follow and the reason I'm bullish. If you ask Gareth Soloway, he's very bullish on Bitcoin, very bullish on gold, but he sees, he tells it like it is in terms of technical analysis. All right, so we went over these. I updated this chart a little bit, and I actually stretched it to where the writing's not quite as clear. But what I did, less than showing you Garofalo's, is we have a channel, right? So this could be deemed a bull flag channel. And this channel is running like this, right? This is a downsloping channel. So in this scenario, we need to break like 240-ish right now to break out, right? And again, high volume is a giveaway. I think we were 8.5 million on Monday, something like that, below 10. We need a 15, we need a 20. We need the direction with the volume. What we don't want is a down day where we break support on big volume, right? So that's your technical lesson for today. And so that applies to both MSTY as well as CONY. And I did some upgrades on the chart as well for MSTY, and it's very similar. Okay, so we talked about holdings, 75,000 shares, so 0.45. The actual here, you got a penny discount. So we closed at 24.04, and fair value according to the amount of shares and the net assets is 24.05. So nothing really happened here. And on CONY, we actually have money made in both, right? We're ahead of the game in our income per share, total income per share, because we have 19 million profit in our synthetics. Now, we're 59 million in the hole, right? We got a lot of time to make that 59 million up. Now you have a better feel with me explaining that we can knock 10 million off just like that, right? Have an 8, 9, 10 point day. But what we want to do is we probably won't secure any of that profit till after we have our next declaration, right? Well, the earliest we would secure that profit is probably May 10th, right? And we'll declare, I think, May 3, our next dividend. So we're looking good, right? But I'd like to win these weeklies. So where are the weeklies in danger? I'll just show you one more time on active. And that's because we're close, right? So this one is the closest. 700 is the 23,250. What kind of money is involved? I can go to April and show you, right? So let's go back over here. So here's our April 26th. Sorry, I pulled this down and they went to 27 and 28. But all three of those expire April 26th, okay? So what's at stake is 3.8 million, 3.3 million, and 75,000. So the bulk of this is 235. We break even. In other words, we don't get any of the 3.8 up to 238.85, right? And at 235, we get a little bit of it, right? We could win almost all of it actually at 235. Because that's where the strike is. But so you can see we're tiptoeing in here. So maybe we go up a little bit and challenge 230, 235 tomorrow, and then we turn around and go back to 229, 227, right? We're at 225. So, volatility is fine in here. It's just if we run by these guys and we run up to 240, which is super on our synthetic, right? We would knock that thing way down, but we would end up having to buy these back and take a hit on our weeklies, right? And we don't really want to do that. So I always like to show you guys, after you see this long enough, you start getting a feel for what makes you money, what loses you money, where you want it to be. And that's the education I want to give you, right? Along with some technical analysis. All right, so that is CONY. Let's move to MSTY. All right, so here we are, and look at this. So MSTR actually outperformed COIN in terms of its up position, right? And they both kind of outperformed the percentage that BTC was up, Bitcoin. But all three were up, right? So they tend to run together. So here we are, 12.77, but we had a nice 10.3. So we went from 29 something, 29.62 to 32.65. So also on this one, let's go look at synthetics, but there were no trades and the share count stayed the same. So no new buys, no real money flowing in, right? People probably were scared at that sell-off because the day before they bought a fair amount. Okay, let's look at our 1150. And this is also, guys, look what happened here. This is the best thing going, right? We were around 2 million in a gain. We now have 11 million profit that we're setting on. We're up at 1324 and our strike is there. So this went way up, this came way down. So if all we did was stay in the 13s and the 12s till 517, we would make all of this money, right? And more. This 11, we would make this 5.7, right? So right now we have a liability of 5.7 million. That would all come over here. So we would have a $17.3 million gain on our synthetic as long as we stay above 1150, right? And we want this to go up, right? We want it to keep going up, but we don't want to outrun our weeklies. So let's take a look at those weeklies. Nothing changed. We didn't add any. So I updated my arrows and didn't change their direction. This gets to be work. Okay. But we all know where that went. So we went up to 32.65 from 29 something, and we went up here substantially, right? Up to 13.24. So where are we? We're in a little bit better situation because we're 5.74% out on 4, which really don't matter. We're 5.36 out on 13.95. Now, there's not as much money at stake because this fund has less shareholders, right? So let's go take a look at those on April. And did I do anything on the chart? I certainly, oh yeah, I did on this. So I drew a parallel channel here. Anytime you're analyzing channels, that your line should always be parallel lines. Right? So we're sort of behaving in what I would term a possible bull flag, right? So it flies like a flag, and you want to see it break out the top and not break out of the bottom and invalidate the bull flag. And some people could view this as a possible head and shoulders. You have a head here and you have a right slanting shoulder of left and right. But right now, that's not so much in play. The line here, we still haven't broke out on any significant volume. So my comments are, we need 3 million to 4 million. We're still operating under 2 million, okay? And when we were moving up, we would have 4 million and almost 6 million days on big volume, right, moving up. So we want to see big volume turn on a breakout. Remember, on 4/29, a week from today, we have the earnings after market. So they have their conference call. So you'll see it in the aftermarket and in the early pre-market on the impact, right? So it could run higher, it could drop lower. Earnings is usually a kicker one direction or the other. Not always, you can have kind of mixed, but generally. So let's look at April and see how much money we have at stake here with these 664. I think it's around 3 million. Whoops. All right. Actually, it's 2. So these are all 426. I color code these, right? I can go back and get rid of all the yellow ones because we've already closed that out on the weekend report on Saturday. So they've paid us, call it 2,100,000, right? 2,140,000, something like that, or 2,100,000. Okay, so we've received that money. So we don't want to run by these, and the bulk, right, 99% is 1395. Well, we're at 1324. So we can get up closer. We just don't want to run by that. But it's a 2 million loss. But I want to show you what that 11 million, right? So let's go back now to the 1150. we now at 11.6, and just by staying above 11.50, we've got another 5.7. So there's 17.3 that's unlikely, unless we really turn down and stay down, to lose, that we will make up, right? Or you remember what happened to us here, right? We took a $28 million hit in our synthetic. All along, we still have $2.43 in short, and they could pay us $1.50. I don't see them paying us all of that because we've got this big 8.89 million loss. Well, they're not going to close it out by declaration date of May 3, but if that number goes from 11 to 15 to 18 like it easily could just on movement up, that gives them more confidence that this is really not going to stay there, right? That this number is going to be much lower, so the loss might only be $3 over here. So our payment is going to be somewhere from $1 on the low side up to where it could be $2, $2.20. To me, that's the range. I don't see anything outside of $1 to $2.20. So that's where we stand. Let's go back and take a look at our April, and let's look at holdings and cash. So again, we stayed the same share level. We had a minus 1,525. No big deal at all. Cash doesn't tell us a thing there. Let's look at holdings. So 32.65 is where we closed. Or was it 32.45? I'm pretty sure it was 32.65. I'll look at it on April. Yeah, 32.65. So at least I'm projecting all the numbers through. And they were saying fair value was 32.51. So you could argue we're 14-cent premium, right? But I'm sure everybody's happy to see it back in the low 30s as opposed to below 30. So this is where you see that 11 million. I haven't moved the chart over, but I will. I started to do this analysis, and I'll put a chart in for you guys. So you can easily see we're 11 million, 11.6 million, not much changed here. See now, as we move up, the liability to buy these back goes up, right? Like this was lower, and so these weeklies tend to climb a little bit. Let me look. I'm pretty sure I updated those. Yeah, 84.0, 89.408. Yep, they've been updated. Okay, guys, I think that's everything I've got. Let me know questions, and more people are doing comments. I love it. People ask advice. I love it. Tell me what else you want to see. You know, all questions are good questions in my view, right? All right, guys, have a great evening. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. It's for education purposes. Have a great one. Good luck to us tomorrow in the markets. Bye for now.